Right, just finished up here with these stations. I placed, shop's dirty. I placed a handful of these already late last week so I could get to killing and started controlling. Alrighty, so I got my little station, brought to you by Killcliff. Need a hammer and bait, obviously. Key. So these are Protecta Evo Expresses. The beautiful thing about these, I've been using these for about 10 years since they came out. Come with a little packet. They have 4 rods, 4 spindles you put the bait on. Has a label, date, and then a key. Save that. Save the key. Take the spindles. The beautiful thing about these is these are known as a tier 1 station, meaning they're animal proof, kid proof, etc., because they have a key and they have a paver brick in the bottom of them. So they're actually fairly heavy. They're about 8 pounds or so a piece. And just take the spindles. You just need a little tap it in. Tap, tap, tap it in. You just basically set up a little assembly line. You never want to flop them all the way open because they do have a plastic seam edge. Grab some fresh bait. And for really, really bad issues, I will put 4 or 5. You can put up to 5 on each spindle, which is a lot of rodenticide. You know, the average weather block bait block is going to kill anywhere from 3 to 10 mice, you know, just based on feeding. So for the most part, I'll put 3 just starting out. For this factory, I'll put 3 or 4, and then what I do is, so I'll do the install tomorrow. I'll put all these stations out. I will take a Sharpie. I will number them. I'll draw a graph around the entire factory as well. Number them, put them out. We do a free follow-up 2 weeks later. Come back, check baiting, check with the office, check with workers and stuff throughout the plants. Make sure that we have sufficient baiting or we have success. Typically after 2 weeks or so, you replace any bait, you know, that's been eaten. Obviously with a focus on, it's normally specific spots in factories. So it's gonna be fence rows, weed lines. This particular factory has a railroad track that's near it, so you do have a rat risk, which for Northern Indiana, that most of the time, the only time we get rats, most of the time, are when train tracks are involved, train stations. You have big shipping or receiving areas, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 bays coming and going, that many pallets moving. That's about the only time we deal with rats, or you're next to dairy farms. Hog farms and such can do the same thing, but most of the time it's dairy farms. So in this particular case, I'm not really worried about rats. They haven't reported rats. They've just noted mice. And so, yeah, I'll come back with my graph, and then I will leave that graph on site with my contact person. And that way, when that person, you know, when we come back, I'll briefly go over it. But then if they're having issues in a certain area, it's not, oh yeah, they're back in the corner by such and such. We can look at that map and go, oh yeah, it's back by station 17. And for this factory, I figured up we needed about 28 stations. A mouse's home range is about 25-ish linear feet. So along an outside edge. Mice and rats are going to have hairs on the sides of their body. And through evolution, they know to stay next to a hard object. Because if they walk out to the middle, particularly like a field or something from above can eat them. So hawk, whatever type predator can then easily prey upon them. So they're going to stay next to a hard edge. And so we're going to set these next to garage bay doors. When I did my walkthrough last week, I made a note. I take a Post-it with me and I'll just hash how many I need as I walk the plant with my contact person. But I'll also make a note, hey, this door's open. This door's open. You know, it's summertime, it's getting hot, and these plants, they've got big fans, they're trying to blow air through. So which door is close to, say, a dumpster or, say, a receiving area? those are the areas that are typically going to be more high traffic, higher risk. When you're talking about mice, rats, etc., how are they being brought in? What type of habitat do they have directly outside that they could live in? And so when I'm walking through, I'm going, okay, there's a door that's open. You got your break room right there, and then you have an entry door that's open 24/7. It's propped open with a cinder block, etc. So you're going to want to focus on those areas a little more than you would say just 100 linear feet of just, regular just walls. Other entry areas, which are pretty obvious to most of us in the industry, are going to be your electrical panels, any type of conduit that you have going in and out, AC units, electrical units. Anytime you have conduit or that sort of electric, that EMF that gives off, for whatever reason, nature loves that. And so you're always going to look to put stations near that. Anytime you have data centers, cables, Ethernet, your networking areas, closets. So I already set up some stations in the office portions. They have 2 office shells. I already set stations up in there, which are not these. They're a smaller station, but they also are locked. And so you want to have some bait there, because what you don't want to have happen, which I have had happen before at a great big facility, was mice get in. They chew through, at the time it was phone line, and they had some networking, but caused considerable damage. We're talking 20, 30,000 worth. These mice got in, destroyed their entire phone panel and networking area in this one building. And so you always want to have some sort of bait in there as sort of a secondary. And I always like to say, basically the house, business, whatever, we're going to basically set up a moat, whether that's termiticide, whether that's, just general pest control, GHP, whether that's rodent stations. You want to play defense as far away as possible. So we're going to set up a moat or a defensive grid, if you will, as far away as possible, and then you're going to have some contingencies or some backups, because what happens is those doors that remain open that I said, oh, hey, this is a great door stop. This is sitting here by the entryway. Let's use this to prop the door open. And then, so these holes, this needs to be set against the hard object, because as those mouse or rats walk through, they're just going to walk right up. Then what happens is when that worker puts it back against the hard edge, they'll set it like this. They'll set it the other way. They won't set it back how it's supposed to go. So through the years, I've tried to get a little creative, try and hide these, but have them as effective as possible, as close to those entry doors as possible. But at the same time, have them not use them as ashtrays, have them not use them as door stops, door jams, etc., or they get left outside and it's just sitting outside in the parking lot sideways like this, because that happens. But a lot of that's just education when you're talking with your contact person, or if you meet, you're talking with line leaders, plant managers as you're walking throughout. You kind of just briefly say, hey, by the way, we're setting these out. Please don't use these as door stops. We're trying to keep the rodent population down so we don't get product damage, so they don't get in. Then that's a whole nother deal. And so, yeah, I will just rinse and repeat. I'll keep going back through here. Pop these open, take the packet out. These used to come in kind of Ziploc baggies, but now they're terrible. So take the spindles out, go through. Again, we're just gonna tap them in. You can put them in by hand, but they don't go down all the way a lot of times. So, but yeah, like I said, I got about 30 of these, so I will rinse and repeat using gloves. Obviously, we're using rodenticide. You don't want to get anything on anything it's not supposed to, but yeah, I'll go through 30 of these. I can probably use 1 full pail of bait to do about 30 of these. I'm not putting 5 blocks of spindle. I'll probably put about 3, since this is going to be a regular quarterly account. We'll receive regular maintenance. So yeah, that's a brief rundown of some rodent control when you're talking bigger facilities. We could place these around residential homes as well, or even things like restaurants or warehouses, storage facilities. Really, the name of the game is just when you have warehouses, stored items, production facilities, etc. When you're talking about, because these, you're talking, our raw cost on these is in the $20-ish range just for us to get them. And so when you talk about setting 20, 30, 40, 50, I have a few facilities where we have about 70 of these outside. But what does product damage look like? What's the cost of that? It's not just a raw cost on, you know, they're getting in and chewing up fabric or chewing up material. We do a lot of food handling facilities. So what's the cost of a mouse getting in, ending up in product and contaminating some product that ends up on major store shelves? You know, so it's expensive. The maintenance is not that expensive when you consider what you're trying to prevent. And so, yeah, just a brief rundown. Like I said, it'll probably take me an hour or so, 45 minutes to run through, get these ready. I'll go through, prep all these, throw them in the truck, install them tomorrow. I will take a silver Sharpie. Lots of guys will put the stickers on them, but if these are gonna sit outside, the stickers don't weather that well sometimes. But I will go through and number them, and like I said, correspond with the graph. That way we have an organized fashion of what stations we're talking about when we have issues, or if stations go missing, it's easy to identify and then replace. So yeah, that's a brief rundown of that. A little Sunday work, getting it done, but that's what it takes when you're self-employed, and that's okay. So have a good one. All right, just finished up here with these stations. I placed, shop's dirty. I placed a handful of these already late last week so I could get to killing and started controlling. What was already there as I waited to receive these and then prepare these. So got them all ready, got them all prepped. Took like 45 minutes, but that way I'm good to go in the morning. Got a couple appointments, get that stuff done. Get up, get that installed done. When you're talking big factories, 30 stations, 30, 40, 50, 60 stations, you know. For a smaller company like me, you know, I've been doing commercial stuff for a long time, well over 10 years. These are bigger jobs for me. And so, you know, I really appreciate when these opportunities arise and the customers listen and they're receptive to, you know, the plan I propose, which I know will work.